As the Greek hunter Narcissus gazed at his own reflection in the water, he fell deeply in love with what he saw. However, this love could never be, causing Narcissus to die from sorrow soon after. This myth not only gives us the term narcissist, but also serves to show the dangers of admiring your own beauty beyond all else. Tonight's beauties unfortunately learned this lesson the hard way, and unfortunately for us, that wasn't their end, as their angry spirits are both out for blood. Good evening, travelers. My name is Anunnaki, and joining me tonight is a special guest, Runya from In Moderation. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Runya, aka Media Adaptation, and thanks for having me. On our channel, we research the popular Japanese yokai and urban legends, and catalog their on-screen appearances to try and make sense of these beings to a Western audience.
And in tonight's episode of Crypto Crossing, we're taking a look at two evil spirits of urban legend, Japan's Kuchisake Onna and England's Bloody Mary, to see which of these phantom femme fatales is deadliest. For the uninitiated, Crypto Crossing is the show where we look at who these monsters are, what they can do, and finally discuss why one of them would beat the other. Who is Kuchisake Onna? The name Kuchisake Onna means slit-mouthed woman, a title which refers to her grim disfigurement. The urban legend of Kuchisake Onna originates in Japan, where she is described as the vengeful spirit of a murdered woman, known to terrorize cities and attack people using a large pair of scissors.
Her origin dates back hundreds of years to Japan's Edo period, where she was the most beautiful woman in her village, and this status allowed her to marry a wealthy samurai. Her vanity, however, got the better of her, as she caught the eyes of many men, and enjoyed all the attention she got. Her husband, furious at her for sullying their marriage, used his sword to carve the hideous slit across her face, stretching from ear to ear. He then told her, "Who will find you pretty now?" In some tellings she died from her injuries, and in others she was driven mad by her heartbreak and loss of beauty, and decided to take her own life. Her anger and grief was so strong that she continued to haunt the world. But where most ghost stories would have a house, or the general area which they perished, Kuchisake Onna is a wandering spirit that you can bump into at almost any time and any place, commonly preferring streets and alleys in Japanese cities. The deceptive spirit, Kuchisake Onna, conceals her scarred appearance underneath a scarf or a fan, but in modern days, she's taken to using a surgical mask, mostly popularized in the 1990s. This isn't considered unusual in Japan, as citizens often wear such masks in public to prevent the spread of germs, or less often, to remain anonymous in crowds. She confronts people either alone or in small groups, and asks them a question.
Watashi kirai?
Do you think I'm pretty? Those who answer no are murdered then and there. But if you answer yes, then she'll remove her mask and continue.
Correctamo?
Do you think I'm pretty now? Like before, answering no will result in death. This time, a more gruesome one, due to her perceiving you as lying in your first question. In some tellings, children who answered no are abducted and brought back to her sort of lair, where they are tortured and or killed. If you answer yes again, she'll simply cut your face to have a matching slit, leaving you to either bleed out or die from shock, or simply live the rest of your life disfigured. The only way to survive unharmed is to give her a trick answer, such as saying her appearance is so-so or average, or by finding some other clever excuse. This often causes her to hesitate, just long enough for you to make an escape. But be warned, she's no stranger to chasing down a fleeing target, and she won't be happy when she catches up to you. In the late 1970s, there were actually a number of sightings of malicious women across Japan, and even a handful of sightings in South Korea, which of course people attributed to the Kuchisake Onna. Children had to be escorted to and from school, and a handful of schools and public parks were even closed. Everybody was on lockdown for a mass serial killer wandering their streets. Perhaps the single most infamous sighting involves a woman who is attempting to abduct a girl. She managed to run away, and the woman gave chase before being struck and killed by a speeding car. The coroner's report noted that her mouth had been slit from ear to ear, but couldn't tell if these injuries was from the result of the car crash or something that she had prior.
Who is Bloody Mary? Owing her name to her own bloodied appearance as well as that of her victims, the legend of Bloody Mary originates in England, where she's described as a ghost that haunts mirrors, attacking those foolish enough to summon her. The story goes that there was once a young maiden named Mary who was incredibly beautiful, so much so that she would spend all of her free time gazing at herself in the mirror and brushing her hair. Eventually, others became upset with Mary, either through jealousy of her beauty or contempt with her behavior. One night, while Mary was doing her usual routine, somebody crept into Mary's room and did the unthinkable. They cut Mary's hair. No longer able to admire her reflection, Mary became hysterical and clawed out her own eyes, before either dying from this trauma or taking her own life shortly afterwards. In milder versions of the story, she simply died of fright from her appearance, while in darker tales, she was outright murdered via decapitation. Sometimes she's said to be the ghost of Queen Mary herself, who was sometimes called Bloody Mary due to her brutality in how many people she had slaughtered. She's similarly linked to Mary, Queen of Scots, really any European royalty with the name Mary. But the most grim of all her tales is the one that connects her to the real-life woman and prolific serial killer, Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Although not sharing the name Mary, she's had the title attributed to her due to her heinous and bloody crimes. A Hungarian noblewoman born in 1560, Elizabeth was obsessed with her own beauty and brutal towards any who might disrupt said beauty. One night, a servant girl pulled Elizabeth's hair while brushing her, and Liz retaliated violently. As a result, she caught some of the servant's blood on her own face, and after wiping it away, believed she looked younger than before. Over the next few years, Elizabeth would regularly hire new servants for her secluded estate, before murdering them and bathing in their blood, believing this to be the key to eternal youth and beauty. Her crimes were eventually discovered when one of her servants managed to escape, and Elizabeth was locked up and left to waste away. She died in 1614. Regardless of the details, Mary's spirit is now said to haunt the mirror world, able to appear in reflections just about anywhere, provided, of course, she is summoned. To summon Mary, situate yourself in front of a mirror in a dimly lit room just before midnight. Stare into your reflection and say, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary," and extinguish your light just as the clock strikes 12. The spirit of Mary is supposed to appear in your darkened reflection. What happens next varies from story to story. The goal of the ritual is to ask Mary about your future, such as who you're going to fall in love with, stuff like that, and Mary will answer in full. However, if you're fated to die soon, or if you simply upset Mary in some way, then she will take fate into her own hands and end your life. She often does this in ways that mirror her own demise, such as clawing out your eyes, but she's also known to steal people's souls and leave them trapped inside the mirror world for all eternity. Now that we've gone to know a bit about who these two are, it's time to take a look at exactly what they are and what they can do. Each of these characters has a range of different forms and incarnations, but for the sake of this matchup we will be primarily looking at their most comparable forms as ghosts.
Starting off, Kuchisake Onna is classified as a kind of Onryu, a vengeful spirit in Japanese folklore. most often women who are treated terribly before death. Onryu are famous for being incredibly malicious and difficult to deal with, while some lesser examples pass on after enough time or after exacting their revenge. Particularly upset or insane examples actually appear to grow more powerful over time. The Kuchisake Onna is one of those examples. Rather than manifesting as an apparition or something similar, Kuchisake Onna is a possessing spirit that takes over a human host in order to exact their vengeance. That is, murdering and mutilating children and adults alike. But not just anyone will do. There are a few requirements for the host to be compatible, such as being a beautiful woman and acquiring the trademark slit mouth. Some stories also indicate a certain mental state, normally someone who is desperate, normally a mother who has been divorced, or a woman who is brokenhearted. Therefore, Kuchisake Onna's behavior of mutilating her target also serves the secondary purpose of giving her more hosts, and necessary as the current host is still a human corpse, which can eventually degrade or rot over time.
Bloody Mary is a rather unique spirit that defies simple classification. Technically the spirit of a deceased woman, she's achieved status as a sort of psychopomp, a powerful spirit that interfaces with other spirits and fate in a way similar to the Grim Reaper. Summoned through what is called cataptromancy, that is, divination through mirrors, Mary is able to reveal the fates and futures of others, as well as kill and claim those fated for an early death. Mary most commonly manifests as an apparition inside the mirror or other reflective surface, while causing poltergeist activity outside the mirror. That is to say, things she affects and changes within the mirror happen in the real world, allowing her to manipulate objects and attack victims. She may also take the place of her victim's reflection in order to control their movements directly, usually to make them harm themselves. She also shares some parallels with vampiric spirits of contemporary European folktales, namely Romanian, as she is also said to directly drink the blood of her victims in order to increase her own strength and vitality.
Despite being a possessed human body, Kuchisake Onna is able to maneuver at speeds that far exceed a normal human's capability. Her running is described as eerily fast. More uniquely, she has the ability to slip into a special space called the Mnemonic Abyss, also referred to as the World of Darkness, or Yami no Sakai. This is a sort of parallel world to her own, inhabited by other ghosts and similar entities. Neither heaven nor hell. It might be more apt to compare this realm to Limbo, as Kuchisake Onna is able to freely slip herself in and out while pursuing her victims, thus giving her the illusion of a quick teleportation between locations.
Bloody Mary is also known for having dominion over a realm of her own, the Mirror World. Literally a one-to-one reflection of our world, accessible through any and all reflective surfaces. Through these reflections, Mary is able to project herself into our world, or pull unlucky victims into the mirror world and trap them. While her movements in the real world don't seem superhuman, her traveling throughout the mirror world is incredible, able to jump between any reflective surface in an instant.
Kuchisake Onna is renowned as a brutal killer. Her trademark attack is slitting her victim's mouth from ear to ear, matching her own, known as a Glasgow smile, more often using her weapon of choice, a large pair of scissors. She's also known to use small scythes, large knives, and really any blade will do, as she's never found without one, and she seems to be able to summon one at will, likely pulling them out of the Mnemonic Abyss. When not carving up faces, she's also known to slice victims cleanly in half. The force needed to achieve this depends on variables, such as how sharp the blade is, but in her case, it suggests an incredible superhuman level of strength. Another feat of this strength comes when she strangled a child using one hand hard enough to break his neck, requiring a force of 900 to 1500 newtons, 3 to 5 times the grit strength of an average person. Even the strongest bodybuilder and athletes top out at around 800 newtons for one hand. Finally, as a kind of Onryu, Kuchisake Onna has the ability to devour the souls of their victims, provided that she kills or weakens them enough.
Mary doesn't usually resort to direct murder, but she's shown to be more than capable in a variety of ways. She can manipulate objects visible from any mirror or reflective surface, as well as directly control the actions of others if she chooses. Things get serious when she decides to exit the mirror and attack directly, where she strangles victims, claws out their eyes, and in extreme cases even decapitates them, mirroring her own deaths across different tellings of her legend. She can also do this all without the use of weapons, which similarly suggests an incredible superhuman level of strength, and any blood spilled during her conflicts only adds to her strength. As a sort of psychopomp, she's able to directly interface with souls, such as to separate them from their bodies and direct them to the afterlife, or trap them inside the mirror world if she chooses. For as tough and dangerous as each of these two are, they're not unstoppable. Let's take a look at the ways people can avoid getting killed. As a foe that anyone can encounter at any time, Kuchisake Onna is said to have a number of ways to overcome her. First and foremost, while the Onryo spirit can't be harmed by conventional means, the physical body she's possessing certainly can. After taking enough hits or simply waiting too long, her body will break down and decay, forcing her to jump ship and find a new host. With that said, the durability of the host's body appears to be greater than normal, similar to the increased strength and speed. Besides overcoming her physically, Kuchisake can also be challenged in wits by answering her questions in a non-binary way. Responses that she's not prepared for can confuse her long enough for you to make a break for it. She'll always give chase, but she can lose track of targets if they manage to hide or evade her long enough. Kuchisake Onna can also be easily distracted by certain things like candy, allowing prey to get away. This is not to say she's unintelligent, rather, her mental instability and ancient age make her out of touch with various elements of the modern world.
This could also be due to the fact that the Kuchisake Onna is a collection of souls, while in this form, with a new host's personality being the dominant at the time. So you can think of it as her only having access to primary functions, and anything beyond that would take her a while to process.
One final point about Kuchisake is that her spirit can theoretically be exorcised out of the host she's possessing, and in one instance was sent to hell thanks to a young boy's prayer. It's implied she did manage to escape shortly after, however, likely through the mnemonic abyss. As for Bloody Mary, her legends don't generally include things like weaknesses or shortcomings. Instead, the idea for beating her is to simply not summon her in the first place. With that said, an English spirit like her should have a few basic weaknesses, such as holy objects, salt, silver, and iron, any of which should serve to injure the spirit or at least dispel her from the fight. She also shouldn't be immune to supernatural-based attacks or things that can affect other spirits. Mary could avoid these things if she chooses to stay within the mirror world, but this would limit her interactions to poltergeist activity, rather than direct confrontation. Now that we've covered all the whats, it's time to talk about who would actually win this encounter, and why. From the onset, Kuchisake Onna has many direct advantages over Mary. Kuchisake's ability to travel into the mnemonic abyss at any time and place is much more versatile than Mary's reliance on mirrors and other reflective surfaces, meaning she'd have an advantage in mobility. Kuchisake also shows greater combat experience and generally superior stats, and a preference for iron weapons such as scissors, which in theory should be able to harm Mary. And finally, should she manage to defeat or injure Mary enough, Kuchisake should be able to directly consume her soul, putting her to rest for good. But despite all that, I don't think that's how this fight would play out. Firstly, let's compare intelligence. Kuchisake Onna has repeatedly shown to be unstable and out of touch when it comes to unfamiliar things. Mary, on the other hand, is an oracular spirit who appears to know of fate or the future, or in the very least is intelligent enough to make educated guesses. Mary would have a much better shot at adapting to the circumstances of this fight. Let's talk about Kuchisake's hosts. These bodies may be stronger than average, but still go down after enough damage, while Mary inside the mirror would be virtually immune to anything Slipmouth can dish out, and still be able to attack through poltergeist activity. New hosts don't exactly grow on trees, but even if we gave her a dozen new bodies during the battle, that just provides fresh bloodshed for Mary to feed on, both ghosts would benefit equally from additional hosts. Both opponents here should be able to slice targets in half or remove limbs, but I think this would be more an issue for Kuchisake as she would be quickly forced to find a new host, while Mary could regenerate from the previous host's blood. If we factor in their signature attacks, Kuchisake goes for the mouth while Mary goes for the eyes. A new smile for Mary doesn't mean much, while the blinded Kuchisake would be put at a great disadvantage. Her targets often escape her after she loses sight of them, and she's shown to have trouble finding people in the dark. Fighting a poltergeist without sight is an uphill battle, and Kuchisake doesn't adapt well to unfamiliar situations. Kuchisake could of course always retreat into the Shadow Realm for safety, much the same way Mary can retreat into the Mirror World. However, she can't affect the real world from there like Mary can with her poltergeist abilities. In fact, it's these abilities that could potentially disarm Kuchisake of her weapons, while Mary is able to kill without needing weapons. Plus, she could always control Kuchisake's movements directly to turn her enhanced strength against her. And finally, Mary could always end the fight early by simply separating Kuchisake from her host and trapping her inside the mirror, like she's done with many other souls. Kuchisake should be able to escape from this world eventually, much like she did from the underworld, but for the sake of this match their fight would be considered over. It's for all these reasons that I believe the winner of this match would be Bloody Mary. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as we did making it. Thanks again to Runia for helping out with this one. If you're a fan of monsters like Slipmouth, then I highly recommend checking out their channel. They've covered them pretty extensively, as well as much more. Did you agree or disagree with our reasoning in this episode? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for future matches or monsters you'd like to see me take a look at, I'd love to hear your suggestions. Until next time, this has been Zenanaki, signing off.